Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for First Friday Spirit Talk. I'm Christopher Mitchell, and I'll be your host. And today we're going to be opening with a short astrology segment that we're calling Chris's Astrocast, where we will explore some of the current energies that you might be experiencing right now as shown through the tool of astrology. So since right now we have several planets, the Sun and Mercury and soon Mars, all moving through Sagittarius, and we have an eclipse today in Sagittarius, I thought that I would break down a little bit the energy of this archetype, the story of Sagittarius in the zodiac, so you can know a little bit about what the energies that we're all soaking in and working on are. It's just a small slice of the energies going on, but it is a dominant overarching theme right now. And so the story of Sagittarius is it's the sign that comes right after Scorpio. And Scorpio has to do with going into the underworld, going into the space of deep transformation, death and rebirth, meeting our fears, being triggered and being transformed. So we spend a month or however long, whatever planet it is, spends going through this sign. And that planet works on these energies. It gets triggered. It finds out more about itself through challenges. It explores the shadow and it encounters what it's afraid of. And through that, it becomes illuminated and transformed, and things change and are reborn and healed. And you come out the other side, you come out of the underworld, up the steps, and back out into the light. And that's where Sagittarius starts. It starts with emerging from this cave of the darkness, looking out into nature towards the horizon, renewed, expanded, transformed, reborn, and seeking truth. You're bringing out of the darkness a kind of light, like Prometheus going into the underworld and getting fire from the gods and bringing it back to man. You know, through our transformation, through our challenges and our triggers and our shadow work and our healing process, we find light that then we can bring back out into the world and become renewed and full of this expanded feeling, ready to share and tell stories and learn and explore. That's why Sagittarius has to do with higher education. That's why it has to do with travel. That's why it has to do with the search for truth. And that leads in pretty well to the topic for today that has to do with this idea of self-realization and the idea of the spiritual path, because that's a very Sagittarian thing where we come back from our challenges stronger and more dedicated and more able to expand into that journey. And so there might be an energy that you're working with of having come through a dark time or having done some processing or met parts of yourself. And now there is, how do I bring this into the world? What do I do with this? And who am I now? Are some of the questions that Sagittarius asks. And yeah, so that's the kind of Astrocast for December, a little brief overview of the current energies. And now let me introduce you to the rest of our panel for the main event. This is First Friday Spirit Talk, where we get together on the first Friday of every month at noon to explore different spiritual and metaphysical topics in depth. I'm here with some of my favorite teachers, psychics and spiritual teachers, Reverend Ginny Brown and Scout Bartlett. And like I said, I'm your host and astrologer, Christopher Mitchell. And this month we'll be exploring the theme of self-realization and getting into the idea of what this spiritual path is all ultimately about. To get started, I think a really interesting question to ask is, as we're getting into the idea of this big thing, self-realization, enlightenment, the spiritual path, before we dig into this subject matter and explore it together, I think we should lay some groundwork and ask, is this something that we can even meaningfully talk about without having fully gotten there ourselves? Is this like, I've got it written down here, is this like people who've never seen a giraffe trying to paint one? Or is this like virgins talking about sex, you know? I don't think either of any of the three of us have reached full Buddhahood yet, or Jesushood, or Christopherhood, or Scouthood, or Ginnyhood. And so as we enter into these questions, how is it that we're able to meaningfully explore it without having gotten there yet? Ginny, would you like to start us off today?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. So, it's not about an arrival point. Self-realization isn't, there isn't like some final arrival that we're getting to. God's consciousness is constantly expanding, and so are we. And so there'll never be an end to this, as far as I'm concerned, right? There's more for all of us, even a Buddha or a Christ or a Krishna or someone who has hit a state of what we would call enlightenment, a place of peace on this planet, and through a body here, even they are continuing to expand. And so I think that's the place we want to kind of really allow ourselves to be, is not looking, because the ego will sneak right in there and tell you that you're enlightened, or tell you that, that it is, or, dangle it like a carrot, like something outside of your reach. So it's important to realize that you're always becoming more self-realized. Like every time you're willing to kind of like acknowledge and meet yourself, you're becoming more enlightened, and you're acknowledging yourself through your behavior, through the mirrors of your companions, and through life's lessons as you grow. So to acknowledge and validate those growth points is how we become more and more enlightened. And it's not specific, so I wouldn't look at it as a place that you're trying to get to, but just recognizing where you're at in that process right now and validating that for yourself. Does that make sense, Chris?
Does, yeah, you're jumping ahead to a couple of my other questions already about whether we're getting, if we get there, or if we can keep exploring that in depth as we go. But I like your answer there. Scout, do you want to add in too?
Phew. Let me start with the really fun and easy part. I've actually, in various circumstances, been honored to be recognized as an enlightened being by two different individuals who are labeled masters in their particular studies. And I noticed that the next day, my life was still the same as it was the day before. Chop wood, carry water. Before enlightenment, after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And there is a level of enlightenment that's still not fully realized, which is a whole different piece. The funny part is all paths lead to Mecca is a classic phrase. I would phrase this that no matter where you are, as long as you're paying attention, you're moving forward towards self-realization. One image that I got showed me showed God as a huge energetic, call it a huge energetic cloud, and that each of us was a fragment of that original energetic that took on some of the stuff of separateness. And then we come and match energy with separateness. In other words, we embody and incarnate into earth stuff. We come and match energy with separateness, and our job is to untangle or elevate the frequency of all of that chunk of separateness that we took on as our part of the project. So it's sort of our part of the project is to untangle more and more and more, so that more and more of our energetic state is elevated to the frequency of our core essence and is in alignment with our core essence. So I view it as a whole path to alignment. And one of the most important first steps of that is when we actually begin to be able to have feelings rather than be them, to have thoughts rather than be them. When we actually bump into that ability to notice our responses rather than be our responses, so that we have our response, we also have our awareness all in the same package.
So I think that kind of gets, heard some weird feedback for a second there. Thought there was a dog barking at me.
It was probably God talking.
Backwards is God. There's no mistake there. Are we going there
For
today?
sure. Maybe. I was thinking about what my version of chop wood, carry water might be. And I think maybe it's kind of fun for all of us to figure out what ours is like. I think it's like feed the cat, watch Netflix, like feed the cat, watch Netflix, like, and just constantly elevating through the experience.
I'm sure the cat would be okay if you skip the watch Netflix part.
Yeah, she would be. If it was just feed the cat, pet the cat, love the cat, feed the cat some more, that would be her. She'd be on it. But so you were talking about being this the original block of wholeness and like continuing to I'm not going to be able to put words to it again the right way on the fly.
I believe the train of thought has left the station.
I think in there was the beginning of an answer to my next question, which was like to get really specific about what is self-realization? Like what is it that we're pointing to with that term when we talk about it as like the not destination, Jenny said, but the point of this whole thing. Can we like start by defining that and then go from there? I'll bounce it back to Scout here.
I just finished a couple of books that I found fascinating. One of which is Grand, author's name David Grand. There it is, David Grand, and his book on brain spotting, and then also Faith Harper and her book on F-word Your Brain. Both of them ended up looking a lot at what's been catching my attention. They were looking at trauma. I've been doing a lot of looking at forgiveness, but they're both sides of the same coin. Releasing. Because I've got this quirky knack of sensing energy as sensing everything as energy flows, I look at all of this progression literally in my world. It's like energy tangles, and that what we're doing is untangling. And so in the world, in the notion of forgiveness, I look at forgiveness working off of a phrase of I forgive them not based on whether they deserve forgiveness, but because I deserve peace. I'm looking at forgiveness as me releasing the clench in me about whatever. And it turns out that the path to consciousness is clench after clench after clench after clench, releasing the clench in us about whatever and coming back to who we really are, releasing the clench in us, coming back to who we really are, releasing the clench in us and coming back to our ability to be in the state of love or in the state of heart or in the state of appreciation or in the state of awe or recognition or gratitude. They're all words for the same thing to me. Releasing whatever it was that grabbed our consciousness and dropping out of that and coming back to us in the moment. So whether you go write books on the edge of a lake, and then, not see anybody, whether you go hike in the mountains, whether you go look at flowers, whether you garden, whether you sit in a chair and meditate, all of those are pieces of building the level of our own energy flow, building the level on our own energy batteries so that we end up in a perspective that allows us to notice how we're responding and be ourselves responding rather than be in the response and be caught up with the programmed and the impressioned and the stuff that got dented and the stuff that our brain still wants to figure out because it thinks if it doesn't figure it out, it'll do it again. It's like, wow, hello brain, and here I am a heart being. Hello brain, and here I am a heart being. Hello body fear, and here I am a heart being. I don't know if that made any sense. It made tons of sense in my brain. So see if you can translate that for them, Ginny.
I'll just take it on another train.
Perfect.
As it was scribed on the temple of Apollo, it said, know thyself. And that lesson goes deeper, is know thyself, and you will understand the universe and the gods. And to me, what self-realization is around, Apollo was a healer, was healing medicine. And so to heal means to understand each person on earth as a reflection of yourself. And to become self-realized is to accept and love all sides of yourself. And we get that in in the relationship to our mother, in the relationship to our cat, in the relationship to our friend, in the relationship to our coworker, in our relationship to God, in our relationship to food, through our relationship with our body.
Let's don't forget the cat.
Did I not say the cat?
She needs to be said twice. She's a cat. She's very important.
So we become that self-realization is to really deeply understand the interconnectedness of everything, and to know thyself, like to see yourself in your mother, to see yourself in your cat, in all these different parts. And when we make peace with that, all the the healing work around trauma and around the things that we feel that have happened to us and things like that is about coming into understanding with a part of ourselves. And it may not be a part we remember. This is how sometimes it's like, well, why did this happen to me in this life? Well, it may be past life related. And that's not to say every bad thing that happens to you is a cause of something bad that you did. That's not the purpose of karma, but it is to gain and to understand empathy. In our very, very first spirit talk, when we were talking about COVID, the energy that was getting channeled through about why this is happening is so that we understand on a global level that what happens to one man in China happens to us all. Every single person in this world has been affected by this. And that's what we need to understand. It's not like you can think some, careless and mean thought about someone and it not affect the whole, including yourself, because you are a part of them. The more realized we become, the more that we're understanding these lessons, and we're getting them right now, just like across many different platforms and ways to kind of see it, because our consciousness collectively is meant to evolve at this moment around it.
I think I can wade in here through my astrological point of view and tie these two things together in a really cool way, because Ginny, you're talking about the evolving through relationships, and I had a thought, but I lost it. And Scout, you're talking about working with these different energy tangles and meeting them again and again and again and untying them. Ginny is through relationship with things. Oh, and knowing ourselves, right? And so in the astrological chart, what we have is this. I'll put a picture up sometime and show it to you all. But it's this wheel diagram with different things at all these different places, and it just goes around and around and around. The sun goes around and it activates everything. The moon goes around once a month and it activates everything. Jupiter goes around, everything just keeps getting hit and activated in new ways, new geometries, new varieties. We think that this trigger was worked out 5 years ago, but here it comes again for another pass. And we're just this spiral of always activating relationships. And what we can do through astrology is we can start to name these things. This is my Venus. This is how I relate to things. This is my Saturn. This is my relationship with discipline and maturity. And as these things get hit, we only clench up and seize up and tense up when we don't have a healed and healthy relationship with whatever that energy of life represents. So the continual unfolding is a continual chance for us to refine and untangle our relationships with all these different energies within us and within everyone. And it happens in our individual charts, and it also happens collectively for everyone's chart, for the chart of the whole planet. And so we're all always being untangled and being activated in these beautiful ways as the universe works on us to help us release resistance and stuck points. And you can see that in the unfolding of the chart. So, I mean, if you're drawn to that kind of thing, I think astrology is a really good way to know yourself and to start to see some of these relationships. And someone was asking about the solar eclipse, which is why I wanted to get into this in the first place, because we have a solar eclipse today. And people will ask, like, what is this eclipse about? And it's kind of hard to pinpoint that specifically because it's going to activate all of our different charts in different ways. That eclipse is on my Venus. So it is a time for that Venus, that karma, that particular tangle for me to get illuminated and seen a little more clearly and worked on a little more clearly. But in your chart, it might be in the second house on Saturn. And in your brother's chart, it might be in the eighth house on Mars. And so all of us are getting profoundly activated to have a chance to work on one of our tangles at this point in time. But what exactly that is unique to the person. But you can use these times as a chance to see what wants to be illuminated and take it a little further in the direction of lightening it up. And so with that, then, throat chakra acting up a little bit here. Let me ask Ginny. So talking about self-realization, is it an on and off sort of thing? Like, is it you are either self-realized and conscious, or you're and awake, or you're not? Like, are there different degrees of it, or is it a thing where sometimes we're there and sometimes we're not there?
Once you're realized about something, you don't go backwards. We do regret, sometimes we deny that knowing, right? And we try to work around that knowing because we don't want to kind of follow that line of integrity, of what we know to be in like our righteous good. We try to circumvent that knowing, and we get whacked along the way of that. So we try to bypass it, and that's our free will in action, because it usually calls on us to act out of the self, in our best self-interest, which sometimes is hard for us to do. That may mean forgiving something or letting something go, or eating something healthy or whatever. Like we really can kind of fuse to our unconsciousness, because like the saying says, ignorance is bliss. Before you don't have to worry about it. All karma is not activated when you're unconscious. It's when we become conscious, and we have to move, we have to make a choice from that consciousness. That's when karma is activated. So it's a little bit of a process that way. It's not, sometimes I imagine that we've all experienced a level of grief. And anytime that the heart gets this opportunity to open in a really profound way like that, sometimes I call it the empath dilemma, where you're so in tune to everything. Like you're so open and you're so awake. The heart and the spirit is showing you everything. And some people achieve this on like a plant medicine or in deep meditation. But I find grief to be our biggest opener to the heart. And you make all these connected dots, and it can be a state of bliss, when you're really seeing how everything kind of comes together and your role in it. But on the other side of that, when the grief begins to subside, it can feel like you're going back into a state of unconsciousness, or you're losing some of that interconnectedness. But that's not what it is. We're not supposed to be in this state always. We have these different centers in our being for a reason. We're supposed to be in our second chakra. We're supposed to be in our emotions. We're supposed to be in our heart. We're supposed to be in our power. We're supposed to be in our imagination. It's a fluctuating state of being. But I find when we we long for that feeling. We don't want the pain that sometimes it took to get there, right? Or the facing of our fear that it took to get to that state of interconnectedness. But we do often revel in the feeling and bliss that comes with total understanding. Like, oh, this is the why they are the way that they are. And oh, this was my, role in that, right? I want to make peace with that. Like, it becomes like this really courageous, open-hearted journey that we just like kind of long for in a way. So I don't feel like it can feel like an on and off switch through like a grieving process, where that door gets kicked wide open and then you kind of go back into the like flow of life. But I don't, but it doesn't actually happen that way, if that makes sense.
Is it fair to say that awakeness isn't just that feeling that we long for, the heart-centered, like that one particular flavor of experience, but that it's like being in the mind when you're in the mind, being in the sacral when you're in the sacral, being in the root when you're in the root, like being with what's arising, not with what you want to be arising, is actually the path to kind of unlocking what you want to be arising.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, to just take that information. Like, a lot of us are realized, right? Like, I recognize like this trigger comes from this action, right? And this is my reaction to that situation. But it's, that's only worth the paper it's written on. Like, it's worth nothing until you change the action, or you slow that space in between. So like, that's where the actual work is. We can be like the great teacher Osho. I thought he was very knowledgeable, but how much of it did he actually embody? Right? There's a difference between that. You can be a scholar, but it's more important to walk the walk. Like, you can have one lesson that you master, like totally master and implement, and that be it. And it will make a profound like change in your world and in your spiritual growth, versus a million little realizations that we do next to nothing with.
Scott, do you want to add into the mix on that kind of overly complicated question? The shadow side of Sagittarius, by the way, the sign of the archer, right, is always shooting for the horizon, telling the story, so busy caught up in teaching and preaching and questioning that you forget to be grounded and you forget to be clear in your communication in the here and now. It's an interesting thing to watch, and it might be part of what the Sagittarius energies bring up for you during this time is, in what way do you wind yourself up and kind of lose the present moment, or lose what's actually here to be experienced?
I think Osho was a Sagittarius.
We have all got it somewhere.
Hey.
That's not the cat.
I think some people might have their mics on. So if you're not one of us, please turn it off. Thank you. I tried to say that as kind as possible, but for some reason it came out in a way that wasn't what it's Sagittarius, I gotta tell you. Thinking before you
I figured that was just somebody's dog that was jealous about all the cat talk. If it couldn't get on screen, it was just going to enter in verbally.
I think we did make the connection of dogs and God earlier. They should be, satiated.
Mhm.
They should have covered it. Yeah. There's such a wonder. One of the traditional spiritual teachings lists the roadblocks or the traps on the way to awareness or realization or enlightenment. And I always find it fun to remind myself that what they list as the final trap is the development of the psychic. Because that intuitive awareness state, that psychic awareness state, is so close to the state of realization that we can get hooked in thinking, I'm there, I made it. Yeah, I guess I'll go there. I had a meditation a couple of months ago where an embarrassing story after all of this time in meditative practice that I've worked. I had a meditation a couple of months ago where, thanks, Chris. I got there. It was a remarkable experience. I got there and I was so surprised to find out that there was so different than what I thought there was. that I suddenly was releasing an awareness of body. I was releasing an awareness of body container. I was releasing an awareness of planetary containment. I was this exquisite expanded state. And I got to stay there for, I don't know, 6 months or 45 seconds. I'm not sure which it was. Depends upon which side of the equation you were on. But I got there. And my brain broke me out of there with, yay, we've made it. Now we'll be there always. And that's been my meditation for the last several months. Let's go find that. Nope, that's not it. Let's go find that. Nope, that's not it. Let's go find that. Nope, that's not it. So it's that exquisite place of returning and returning and returning and returning, refinding, rebuilding, expanding, and becoming more aware of. And in my path anyway, the levels of energy that we can place in our own internal batteries, the level at which we recharge, refuel, reconnect our own internal batteries, whether it's to take a part of a day off, whether it's to take a vacation, whether it's to just go outside and recognize how beautiful the world is, rebuilding and refilling our own energy levels is a really key place. So talking about energy, let me do this and then I'll do that. First piece, this is my own little experiment that I've started doing in some of the spirit talks. I love practicing broadcasting energy. The first teacher that taught this to me, a woman named Patricia Sun, based in California. But what I'll just invite y'all to do is just relax and just notice how you feel. And this is not a test of you. This is an experiment for me and a test of me. So just relax and notice how you feel. No pressure on your part of it. Tons of pressure on mine, of course. Because what I want to do is I just want to intentionally increase my own energy flow such that it expands my energy field through our entire broadcast audience, which if you do the math is like, substantial on a physical plane and no place on a non-physical plane. And then I just want to take that expanded energy state and I want to take it up in, call it frequency. There we go. And from there, I'd like to take you through a short edition of the live beam meditation practice. This is the practice I use and teach. So if you may want to close your eyes and just let yourself take in a long, deep breath till your lungs are full and let that air flow out again. And as you're ready for another breath, let it be a long, deep breath. And this time, imagine that air flowing out through your body as if your body were layers of silk or fabrics. And with each breath, let the air flow in and let it flow out through your body, feeling your body open and expand. And in your imagination, imagine reaching down to the center of this planet Earth and stirring that warm, rich, dense energy there. Curl that imaginary hand into a cup and use that cupped hand now to draw a surge or a streamer of energy right from the center of the earth, right up through the earth. It's just energy passing through energy, right below you, drawing it up and into your body, just in front of your tailbone. Energy center there is your first chakra, associated color red. And drawing that, stretching that surge, that streamer of energy from the earth, move it and stretch it from tailbone to bring it up into about navel level in your abdomen, second chakra, associated color orange. Draw it on up deep inside your body now, just in front of your spine. Draw it on up to solar plexus level, third chakra, associated color yellow. Drawing that on up now, again, deep inside your body, draw it up to heart level, fourth chakra, associated color green. And let's just stay there for a moment and allow ourselves to bring that earth warmth, that rich, dense earth energy warmth, right on up in your body to heart chakra, and let that heart area warm and soften and open and glow. Simply let it be a glowing light right at the center of you, whether you get green, orange, pink, gold, whatever you got, it's all fine. Just be there with it, that energy from the earth coming right up through the lower half of your torso, right up to heart level, letting your heart warm and expand and just let in Ginny and I are both majorly heart practitioners, so we just radiate that. So just let in that love that we're radiating with this training. And breathing, remembering your body gently, deep inside your body, just in front of your spine. Draw that stream of energy now up past your heart to the base of your throat. Associated color blue. Draw it up your throat to the middle of your head. Associated color indigo. Draw it from the middle of your head to the top of your head. Associated color purple or violet. And now stretch that surge, that streamer of energy, stretch it right on out the top of your head, all the way up and into a big energy cloud overhead that I'm just going to call source. And feel yourself now suspended in the middle of that beam that's connected at earth core below and at source above. Just let yourself, your body may even start to rock at this point. Just let yourself feel yourself suspended in the middle of that beam, connected at earth core, connected at source. And using your own will it to surge or increase that flow of energy up that beam. Richer, denser, faster, brighter, more. Just make it more. And relax and allow that increase of flow up that beam to create a glow from deep inside of you, and let it glow right out through every cell in your body, in front of you, behind you, above you, below you, beside you. And let it even glow right on out through everything around you: floors, chairs, walls, ceilings, people, cats, dogs, rainbow llamas. Breathe with that gently. And just stay in that state as you bring your eyes back open and bring your awareness back to the room and rejoin what we're doing. Let yourself stay in that expanded state, even as you rejoin this particular First Friday Spirit Talk. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. The room is literally shaking for me at the moment. I've got a spontaneous question that just came up through doing that exercise with you. And it's interesting because I felt the elevation of the frequency, and it lifted me out of some kind of anxiety that I myself was having about just like the subtleties of the flow of the show and the Sagittarian energies that were going on. And it brought me to this more expanded, more peaceful, more mind clear state. And then as I was going through the meditation and feeling the energy flowing through me like that, I realized that in myself, and I'm sure in lots of other people, there can sometimes be a tendency to think we have to fix all of our patterns, fix all of our mistakes, heal everything in our lives, get it all right, get it all perfect, and then we can stop, sit down, and get that clear and get that expanded and get that in our heart. And I think that might be one of those traps you mentioned, something like the psychicness or whatever, that keeps us from just having it here and now. So I wonder if you have anything to say to that kind of tendency of the mind to block us from what is available to us in every moment.
First of all, nice catch, Chris.
Thank you.
Just a little earlier this morning, I was working with a weekly client, and that's exactly where we got, was that she had past life stuff that was holding her back. And we recognized that the sticky part of past life stuff is the part of us that in that lifetime thought we needed to figure out that trauma, that event, that grief, that sadness, thought we needed to figure it out, and that we'd never get on path until we could figure it out. And what that client and I were working on was, oh, as it turns out, we don't have to figure those out. We simply let them go. We let now go, and we come back to present and move forward, because where we're going is where we're going to end up. We don't have to figure it out or fix it or decide it to end up expanding, awakening, and becoming light. So nice catch. You just slipped that right out of her session this morning. Beautiful. But that really truly is, I mean, forgiveness is about letting go of where we're clenched. There's I think it's one of the Buddhist sayings that says that holding on to anger is like holding on to a resentment, or non-forgiveness is like holding on to a hot pan and expecting them to get burned. It's letting go of the clench and the decision, and even the factor of, I have to figure this out so that I'll know what it was, as opposed to, I had one teacher that taught that knowing is the booby prize. Being is what we're about, but knowing it is the booby prize.
And even if the perceived mistake or misstep or misalignment or whatever was like had just happened, rather than grip and beat yourself up about it, it's to let it go and then proceed from this present moment always to like, well, how can I work with it from here forwards? How can I, instead of beating myself up for how it just went, how can I move it towards where I want it to go? There's a spiritual teacher I really like who talks about it in terms of like, if you make a wrong turn while you're following the directions on Google Maps and you realize a mile later that you made a wrong turn a mile back, you don't have to drive back to where you made the wrong turn and proceed from there, because Google Maps will show you how to get to where you're going from where you are, not from where you were.
And you don't even have to feel badly when your GPS calls you a recalculating. You just go, I'm a recalculating, we'll go from here.
So this expanded state, the idea of the kind of the awakened state, elevated, the block of source energy before it picked up the tangles, right? Or the place that we get to when we're outside of space and time and we are mixing back with source again. Do we come from the awakened state initially and kind of come out of it to come down into these lifetimes? Like, I think this is kind of what they talk about in the Christian mysticism when they talk about the idea of the fall from grace, or the fall from heaven, right, into density. And so how is it that we do fall out of our natural awakened elevated state? And what is it that holds us back from easily returning to that? Ginny, let me give it to you first and then we'll go from there.
Our mind is what stands in the way of that. We're actually there now when we aren't standing in the way of it. And the mind is what does that. So like, you are healed, you are forgiven, and you are loved by God. That's the only judgment there is. That is the final judgment, is that God loves you. And you are a part of that consciousness. You are not separate from that consciousness. You are a part of that. But when in the mythology of Adam and Eve, when we took the apple from the tree of good and evil, that's the split mind. Okay, that was our choice and that was our creation. And the moment we bit into that apple, we chose this world of illusion over the at oneness to discover for ourselves what it means to be a creator and what it means to live inside your own creation. And so to return to that state of being is as simple as realizing that you are healed, forgiven, and loved. Now, what stands in the way of that is the judgmental God we've created, is the thinking that we have sin or something to make up for, that we've done something unforgivable, that, that there's a debt. You can start to see the manifestation of what we believe to be wrong with us, that whisper of fear, right? The moment that apple was bitten, right? From when we created the mind, that's what that mythology is talking about. What happened? Our God became judgmental and punishing, right? We hid ourselves in shame. We became split. We were no longer one being, we became two, and then we needed to hide ourselves. So there's this whole, you can really, really, like, as far as Christian mysticism goes, this is a major point in study of mine, is you can really look at and understand like where we got it wrong, right? Or where we made this choice. And to return to that state of innocence is to find your innocence in anything you've deemed to be a mistake, is to return to your own state of innocence and to return every person on earth to their state of innocence, and to see that and hold that only as truth. Everything else is story. Everything else is the illusion we've created. And so, like, our former president gave me a lot of work, on myself to see where is the love in his action, where is the innocence in his action, and it triggered my ego. It triggered my right and wrong. It triggered my mind into a place of sorting out what is good and what is bad. But I know well enough to understand that that is the illusion, that is the trap. And so I needed to return him to a state of innocence and return him to the same, we sit at the same table, so I want to pass the mashed potatoes. I want to understand, and coexist in a place with peace, especially with the one that lives inside my mind. So it's not what we're undoing while we're here is the thoughts that we've created that stand in the way of us seeing ourselves as we are, which is pure, innocent, and loved, and acting from that. Once you're aligned with that, your actions, they only come from that place. And that's part of what I was talking about in that grieving process, when we can just see the innocence in everyone and we see the innocence in ourselves, and it brings us to our knees. It takes us to a place of grace and mercy. That's my rant.
Yeah, Scott, how are you going to pick up from that profound mic drop? That was amazing, Ginny. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry about this. I had just posted a message and there we go. Now we got it taken care of. I'm back in place. All right, so I'm at the park and I'm having a wonderful time, and it's a beautiful day at the park, and it's a fabulous day to be at the park. And then I remembered that it was my week to pull the hand cart full of soccer gear so that everybody at the park could get to play soccer. So I have to head home. I left the park. I have to head home, get the cart, and I have to haul the cart back to the park because that's my part of the overall group project. We are all fragments of the original essence of that which is God, my view. Oh, and by the way, happy Jesus was born in July month to everybody. But we are all fragments of the original wholeness of that which is God. We broke out of that wholeness, or we lifted out of that wholeness to take on a portion of the energy of separateness. Each of us that chose to release from the wholeness and take on a portion of that which is separateness takes on a part of that which is separateness. And now that's our cart full of soccer gear. We're there to sort out our part of this energy of separateness until we can untangle it, bring it into alignment, and elevate its frequency until it merges with that which is God. So we leave as a small fragment of God, we take on a bigger gloop of separateness, and once we get all of that separateness into alignment, we elevate back up and we rejoin the original wholeness as a larger chunk, and God grows. Bad news. Once you decided to be here, you're in for the run of the game. Good news, you've got all the time in the world, which is sort of my own fun joke, because because for as long as there's still stuff to work out, there's still world and there's still time. And once there isn't world and there isn't time. So you've got all the time in the world. Bad news, once you signed in and you start to wake up, you can't unwake up. Good news, you also can't screw it up. You can make it slower, you can make it longer, you can make it more interesting, you can have more deviations, you can make it more pain-filled, you can make it, well, in a Buddhist tradition, you can make it not as importantly painful. But you get there, and you can't get there any sooner than you do, you can't get there any later than you do, so you can't work harder and get there earlier, and you can't work badly and get there late. It is a progression. Our souls and our essences are drawn forward. So it's really a matter of the more you can allow yourself to release out of whatever it was that separateness says in your mind and your body and your awareness and your surroundings is wrong. And the more you can release into allowing yourself to be drawn forward and let the aspects of your world come into alignment around you, the more easily you move forward. And in my particular life, the less deep the heel grooves that get dug into the earth while God's drawing me forward.
Sometimes I think of the unfolding aspects of astrology, the different transits that happen, as like you can either see it as like these big hands of the universe gently untangling strings of a knot, or you can see it like a cat getting a bath, and this thing just being held in soap and water and just not realizing that it's good for it, you know, yowling and scratching. It really feels good when you start to see triggers and healing as like, this can feel relieving. This can feel like a spa day. This can feel like I'm getting unwound if I can be in trust and work and in the right orientation to it, you know. And I think I want to say, because a really interesting point of my journey recently has been noticing in my mind the tendency that one of the ways that separation has been propagated or continued in my thinking has been the idea of like discernment between, there's this spiritual teacher and there's this spiritual teacher and there's this idea and there's this idea, and which one is right. This one says this, but this one says this, and it's like I turn it into like a dog cage match in my head, just making different truths fight each other, rather than going from a place of, it's a weird image to evoke, but it's
try and dig your way back out of that one, Chris.
Yeah, forget the dog part, but it's God, really. It's a God cage match. But okay, gosh. So the idea of setting these different ideas against one another, but there's another way you can see it where it's like, where's the unity, right? Where is the everything is here to help me? Where is the every one of these teachings that I encounter is my own higher self wearing a mask to give me a different piece of the puzzle, whether or not it's
so
the
there's
right
a place
puzzle
where,
piece
Chris,
for me.
I'm gonna bail you out a little bit, because there's a place where, even as Ginny was mentioning, if we happen to have a world leader or a national leader that to us seems completely the embodiment of what we think. All right, so y'all want to catch it. LIVE, live and live, LIVE is energy. Live and live is energy flowing in, and call it upward direction. EVIL is the same word spelled backwards. It's just energy counterflowing. And I can't get my hands to line up. There we go. It's just energy counterflowing. LIVE, EVIL. Energy flowing in alignment, energy flowing reverse to alignment. Sin comes from archery, and all it meant was off the mark. If your target's so far you can't see where the arrow hit, you've got some person, hopefully safe, down by the target that calls out that you're either on the mark or off the mark. And when you're off the mark, you just want to adjust and get back on the mark. There's all of that releasing. So when we get a world leader, such as a whole bunch of years ago, when one leader in Europe decided that he was going to take over the world and be in charge of everything, and everybody else decided the fact that he wanted to kill a bunch of people was evil, we can either go, oh, I can't look at that, or we can go, okay, which part of my humanity was represented there, and how much more clearly am I aware that that part of my humanity that could be so rageful as to want to like push the people I don't like out of the way, or squash them, or dead them, or whatever it is, which part of my humanity is now very clear that that's not in alignment. If perhaps you recently had a national leader or currently have a national leader that you hugely think is off the mark, which part of my awareness is remembering on the mark because of that contrast? And where is the part of me that could understand how I could do that, so I can release that part of me and recognize not going there? It's exactly that, Chris. Well done.
Yeah, and I'm talking about that the ability to work with our projections and our thinking in order to create more unity. And what I wanted to point to was in our last question about what is it that holds us in separation, how everyone was saying the same thing in their own flavor, in their own way. Scout's talking about the tangles that we took on when we came here. Ginny's talking about the patterns and habits of mind that hold us in the illusion of separation. I could point to the astrology chart and say, look, this is what each of us took on to work on, and we're all just saying in a different way, but we're pointing to the same sort of truth or energetic reality, just in our own different ways, and to see the unity in that too. And so we only have 5 minutes left here, but I think a question to leave off on, if we can just hit it for a couple minutes each, would be, I think, a good ending point, that it used to be the case on this planet that it seemed like only one or two people woke up at a time. We would have a Jesus, we would have a Buddha, we would have a Krishna or whatever, and they would serve as reflections for us. But it seems like right now on the planet, there's a whole different thing going on where we're all waking up at once, or at least that is talked about a lot. So are things changing in that way? Are we all waking up at once right now? And that was a lot to get into in a couple of minutes, but it's a nice cap on the show. Scout, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
All right, everybody, take a deep breath and let it out again. We're going way off into woo-woo land, but don't poo-poo the woo-woo, to borrow somebody else's phrase. Not only are we, as spirits in earth suits, not only are we elevating ourselves, not only are we, as spirits in earth suits energy, elevating ourselves, but this reality system that we experience as a planet, and that we refer to currently as Earth, and when it was a different frequency reality system, we referred to as Atlantis. It wasn't an island, it was a different frequency reality system, same space, different time. This reality system we experience as Earth is in the process of elevating a notch in frequency. And I can't define a notch because it's beyond comprehension. And I read lots of fancy things people are saying, that we're moving from 4th dimension to 37th dimension with a left elbow and a purple overtone, or however they describe it. It's just words about something that can't be put in words and can't be grasped. It's ineffable, but they're wanting to F it. That comes out badly. This whole reality system is being elevated in frequency up a notch. My guidance is pretty simplistic. It says it's going from being a 3rd grade classroom to being elevated into being a 4th grade classroom. In the process, we're elevating it, as my guidance describes it. If you get a flock of seagulls hanging onto an elephant, if they'll all flap their wings, they can steal the elephant. We're contributing to it elevating, but the fact that we're here in that elevation of frequency is bumping all of us up a notch and causing spectacularly wonderful craziness. Everything from millions of women deciding that women are human beings and protesting about it, to viruses saying our turn. All of that, to nations changing, stuff shifting. The frequencies are being elevated, and you'll notice the duality on the planet, the incredible polarization lets you know that that elevation of frequency is welcome in some processes that are humans, and not welcome at all in other processes that are humans. And we're seeing that, my guidance shows me that there eventually actually comes a separation where, I got to do a side test, there comes a separation where the 3rd graders ready to be 4th graders move up with the frequency, and the 2nd graders and early 3rd graders not ready to be 4th graders move to a different, call it, reality system. Play with that one. That was more than my couple minutes. Sorry, Ginny.
I'll just speak to evolution and kind of how at different points in time, we're all focused on very specific things, right? Like the builder builds, the mechanic tinkers, the priest connects, right? And the perception for a long time on Earth, and this is a very revolutionary moment that we're in, that we all are allowed to have our own personal connection to God. And this is what Jesus was really here to teach us. Like, you don't need anything else besides to go within, that your God lives inside here, and you can commune here. There is no separation between you and this being. And so, as our last avatar, here at like a grand level, There's been others, but that was to raise our consciousness and to say, oh, to get us to the state we're at now, where we can all commune with a higher knowing. We can all commune, individually with the God of our heart, that it doesn't have to be channeled through some other means, right? And so at that time, at Earth's consciousness, it was separate, right? Because that's what we believed. We gave our God over to a statue. We put our faith into a statue. We put our faith to Mount Olympus, or to, some cosmology outside of our inner world. And that was a huge change. So, and that's because of our development collectively, that we can now use that as a developed sense of self. So that's where I'll leave it. But so it's happening on purpose. It's happening as it's supposed to. Not that those individual people are not they were here to show us that path, right? Like Buddha showed us the path of separating yourself from the ego, right? So separate yourself from self to connect to all that is. And then Jesus showed us how to love, how to channel that energy and to be reborn.
And then the internet showed us how to be all interconnected planet-wide.
Yep.
Well, there's so many places I want to go with that, but we're out of time, and this was really wonderful. Thank you for joining us, everyone, for Spirit Talk today. I've got links to everyone's stuff in the chat box, and we'll give a quick little spiel here too. And then if you want to join us next month for the next episode, will be the first Friday of January at noon Pacific time. So I'm Christopher Mitchell, and my email is unlimitedastrology@gmail.com. I'm open for readings. Hit me up if you want to know how eclipses, new moons, full moons, retrogrades, or whatever are working in your chart, or I can help you with any other astrological questions you might have. And I'll pass it over to Scout or to Ginny, and then to Scout, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for coming.
Reverend Ginny Brown, work with individuals, couples, your animals, your houses, anything you need support with energetically. Feel free to reach out. My contact is right there.
Cool. Thank you guys, and thank everybody for coming. We really appreciate you being here. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, please, somewhere down here, click subscribe. Even if you're never going to come back. In fact, gather up your entire outlaw needle-pointing gang and get them all to go in and click subscribe on YouTube, just because we need the numbers. We don't care if they listen or not. Well, we'd like it too, but yeah, we don't care. We just want the numbers. I'm Scout like Pathfinder, Bartlett like Pears. One of my contributions is I do a radio show about personal growth and spiritual growth every Monday and Wednesday morning. It broadcasts in San Francisco, but we archive them up on, there it is. We archive them up on that website. No charge. You can go in. There's this is embarrassing. The show's been recognized as the longest running major market personal growth radio program in the nation. And so we've got something like almost 500 hours worth of personal growth and spiritual development stuff in there from radio shows. And I do sessions with individuals and couples. I'll send you to Ginny for the pets. Love you guys very much. Thank you so much for being here. My heart to you. See you next month, I hope.
Bye, everybody.